Welcome, everybody, to another episode of Audio Judo. This being the close of year episode. End of year, close of year, year-end wrap-up, whatever you like to call it. That is what this is. I am here. I am Matthew.
I'm Kyle.
And we are glad to be here again. As I reflected on the year 2019, I am at once energized by this program and the renewed passion that I have now for music that this particular thing helps spur. I am grateful, most of all, to Kyle and Randy for their amazing contributions to this for little or no benefit, but mostly no benefit. To the guests we've had, like the Cold Stairs, St. Petersburg, Daniel Victor, the upcoming Dirty Streets, my wife Heather, who guested on the holiday episode, Kirby, who was on the Houses of the Holy episode, my son Christian, who's involved in the social media aspect of Audio Judo, and most of all to every person who's listened to this podcast. It truly is an honor for me, and I'm blown away by how many people have actually listened to it. And from my vantage point, we're just getting started, everybody. We have an exciting 6 months or so planned out right now with some legendary artists coming on here, which I am just flabbergasted that they agreed to
Matthew
show up.
is pee-pants excited about some of the interviews we've got coming up. He giggles like a schoolgirl a lot when he's talking about it. It's really weird.
And our typical usual banter about records. But we have a year to close out with this, our top 5 individual records of 2019.
Oh, yeah.
So I am excited.
I'm really excited about this. It was a very difficult list to come up with.
It was not easy. And that's actually right here in my notes. First thing I said, first of all, how difficult was this? I said, and I'm like, not for the good reason of, oh shit, there were so many records this year that I loved. How could I pick just 5? Nope. I had to pick 5 that I thought were the best, but they certainly aren't on any of my top 50 of all-time records. Yeah. Not even close.
Oh, no way.
But all this renewed energy that I have about music, I thought perhaps, maybe I'm being a little more critical with this show in mind. Maybe I have too much of a Rolling Stone set of eyeballs on this. But I'd like to believe that isn't the case.
I hope it's not.
I want to believe that I'm letting more in. But who knows? I don't know. I don't even know what I'm talking about generally. So. I know I know that I love music. I know this is my vehicle to share that love of music with other people. And so I'll continue to do it until I don't know, as long as I can talk, I guess.
Don't jinx yourself that way. Also, let's be real here. This is like this as a vehicle. This is like a 3-wheeled milk delivery truck. One of those European.
Oh, I like those.
Numbers.
That's pretty cool.
But they go around a corner too fast and everything spills out.
Ooh, so like a big wheel.
Yeah,
a big wheel. Gonna like throw the brake on it and do cool
slide it
burnouts.
Pretty much, yeah.
But at least it's a vehicle.
That's true. It's going somewhere.
Some sort of conveyance.
Right? As long as we're careful, it won't tip over.
So, yeah. So you want to start? We want to go first?
Yeah,
we'll just go back and forth?
Yeah. Other than being just something that came out in 2019, did you do anything in particular to pick these? Because I kind of, one of my criteria was it had to be an album that I actually listened to in 2019.
Yes, that is true.
Nothing that I picked was something that just, a couple of these did come out towards the end of the year, October, November. So
Sure.
I've only listened to them a few times, but none of them were like, oh, I forgot that came out this year and I never listened to it, but let's throw it on there because I listened to it once for this episode. No. These are all things that I've listened to a couple of times.
Yes, these are all records that I am familiar with, that I listen to repeatedly and that I enjoy listening to. It wasn't anything. I did do a rudimentary search through a bunch of magazines' top 50 albums of the year to see if any of these happen to be on any of those lists. One of them was. But for the most part, I was kind of just dumbfounded looking at that list going, I don't know most of these at all. Like, I don't even know who these people are.
There's
how did Tanya Tucker get on this list? That's what I'm like, what? Tanya Tucker?
I think for me, one of the biggest...
I thought she was dead.
I think for me, one of the biggest surprises, there were a couple of big surprises in doing this research, but the first one was how much of music that's coming out now is classified as alternative. Like, rather than being in a specific genre. I mean, I guess alternative is a genre, but
I think
so
that's
much
just
of
the catch-all for...
Yeah. And so much of what I apparently enjoy listening to now is considered alternative. And on top of that, how much of the new music that's coming out falls in alternative. I knew that hip hop was a big hip hop, whatever you want to call it. I knew that was going to be probably by far the majority of the albums that were coming out. It's almost 2-1, if my count is correct.
Wow.
So basically, for every 100 hip hop albums that come out, there's 50 other albums that are coming out.
Wow, that's a lot.
Yeah. Other thing I was super surprised about is how much hard rock and heavy metal there was that came out this year.
It's a lot of metal
that I had not heard at all. Like, it just didn't even register on.
Well, where are you going to hear it?
That's exactly the thing.
Unless you're listening to Ozzy's Boneyard, maybe, or something else on Sirius, you're not going to hear it. You're not going to hear it on terrestrial radio.
Yeah. And even then, so much of that is classic stuff.
Sure.
It's like, because that's what people want to hear, and they'll throw in a new song every once in a while. But so much of it is just
if you're going to hear metal on the radio, you're going to hear Enter Sandman or something.
Exactly.
And you're going to hear that kind of Black Sabbath maybe.
Yeah.
But you're not going to hear any of the like Baroness or any of the metal people that are out now.
Yeah.
It's just under the radar. And the classifications are so weird because alternative, when I was growing up and in listening to music in the 80s, was The Cure and stuff like that, which then kind of transferred and became modern rock.
Yeah.
And then Nirvana, stuff like that, became college radio. And the label changed. And you wonder what then... Is it the stuff they don't know what to call it? They just call alternative. And that's just kind of where it lands.
Stamp it.
Yeah.
Alternative.
It's alternative. To what? To everything.
to any other music you could be listening to
exactly.
right now.
But I'm with you. Where are you going to hear it unless you seek it out, which has made everyone silo up about what they listen to. If I like this type of music, I can listen to just this type of music exclusively on the radio if I have Sirius and just listen to metal.
Yeah.
Where when I was a kid, if you wanted to listen to the radio, you were going to get exposed to even if you were listening to a rock station, you were going to get a pretty wide range of rock music. You were going to get Tom Petty. You were going to get Bon Jovi. You were going to get Van Halen. You were going to get a bunch of different things. And now if I only want to listen to Tom Petty type stuff, I could just go to Tom Petty radio and just listen to that particular thing all the time. So
what we're saying is SiriusXM, please sponsor our podcast.
Yeah. We can listen to audio judo 24 hours a day.
Perfect. The audio judo SiriusXM network.
I love it.
It's like Howard Stern.
Right. And
only filthier.
We could curate stuff people should be listening to.
Right. It'd be great.
That'd be an easy way to do it.
All right. Let's
just talk all the time.
Let's do this though. That was just kind of a
talk all the time anyway. That's wouldn't be much of a change.
I was just kind of curious how you picked these, but that's some good talking points there.
Yeah, it was good.
So
you go ahead and start.
These are in no particular order. These are just the 5 that I feel were pretty good albums this year. Number 1 for me was Weezer, but not the Black Album, the Teal album. It's all covers. And I know a lot of people out there are immediately like, but you know what? I like it. I have been listening to it since it came out. It's fun. I definitely think that it's different.
I think it's an excellent record.
I think it is too. Especially for some reason, Take On Me. Everybody that does a cover of that song, I love the cover.
It's great.
I don't know what it is. It's just every time I'm like, oh boy, another cover of it.
Is there a Eurythmics cover on there?
There is. Okay. Everybody Wants to Rule the World.
No, that's Tears for Fears.
Oh.
So Weezer's
Sweet Dreams.
Sweet Dreams. So there is a Eurythmics on there.
That's it's actually the 3rd track on there.
Okay. I like it. The covers are pretty faithful.
Yes.
To the originals. They're not taking There's not like a whole bunch of chances taken with them, but they're very, very well done. The Africa version of it, replacing the keyboard solo with a guitar solo, is actually quite interesting.
The one thing that I did think was really interesting about this, though, is how nobody critically liked this album at all, which, surprise, but
why?
All Music editor Stephen Thomas Erlewine, I believe is how his last name is pronounced, wrote this quote, and I thought it was pretty funny. Taken on strictly musical terms, the Teal album is pretty anodyne stuff. Weezer replicates the arrangements of beloved songs, adds a bit more fuzz on the guitar solos, and flattens the vocal affectations, which amount to one weird trick. Weezer doesn't attempt to make the songs their own, yet these versions unmistakably sound like Weezer.
Sounds good to me.
Yeah, that sounds great.
What was that, like the third or fourth word in that review?
Strictly musical terms, the Teal album is pretty anodyne stuff.
Anodyne?
Anodyne, anodyne.
So he's just a pretentious dickhead, is what you're saying.
He has access to a thesaurus, for sure.
So he's just writing to feel smarter than everybody else that's listening.
That's what I feel like, yeah. If you're using a word like anodyne.
What an ass. Like, what? I don't know how that benefits anybody.
Yeah. It's
just garbage. Because does it make people happy?
I don't know.
Like, why does...
I don't understand why our culture has become shitting on stuff.
Yeah. Hypercritical of something that's enjoyable to listen to.
It's one thing to say, I enjoy listening to something. It's another thing to say, I'm going to shit on this thing. And I realize critics' jobs are sort of to be critical, and to, come out and say, hey, this isn't very good. But it has just become them shitting on things that they don't enjoy. They're no longer critical about it. They just say, well, I didn't like this, so now I'm going to shit on it.
Yeah. There's no positivity in there. They could have done this differently. Hey, maybe if they had done this, it's just, that's garbage.
Yeah.
It's just crap. Anodyne, blah, blah, blah. I'm important. I had word of the day, toilet paper, and this is what I came up with. Like, I don't care. Like, what a jackhole. I mean, that kind of stuff makes me mad because there's no reason for it.
Yeah.
I'm not going to do that.
Good.
I'm not going to tell you that if you email me and say, I really like Tanya Tucker's new album. Good.
Great,
I just didn't know she had a new record. I think she hadn't made anything since like the 80s. But what do I know? So my first one is it's a band called Matthew and the Atlas. And it's a record called Morning Dancer. This is a obscure UK band that I found about 5 years ago when they released a record called Other Rivers. And I kind of find it hard to classify the sound. Best I've landed on is like Southwestern electric or electric folk. It's bizarre.
Ooh.
I'm not sure what it is musically that I love about it. And I said, maybe it's the space in the songs, because there's a lot of empty space in the songs. But this guy's voice is like super unique, strange sounding. And this album that they just released isn't even one of my favorite records by them. But such are the choices that I have in 2019.
Yes.
But there's some really excellent songs. So if people download this, Pyres is a super song. Tower Above the Sun sounds like it could fit on an earlier Nick Drake album.
Oh,
this is what I was playing.
This is what you were listening to earlier.
Yes. This album, where previous records used a lot more electronic sounds, as they replaced a lot of those with some brass touches and pushes some of the electronic stuff a little bit further down in the mix, which is interesting. I found some limited reviews of it, and people praised the guy's voice and note, quote, it's a nice addition to their catalog and building on what they've created. So, which isn't that high of a praise, but nevertheless, I think it's an excellent record, especially on the way home from work. It fits nicely.
Takes about that amount of time.
Boom.
It fits nicely.
Boom. This is where you told me last night to write boom.
Oh.
And an exclamation point in my notes. So I did. Boom.
Oh boy, I'm glad I told you to put that in there. It was well worth it.
Right? Because it didn't make any sense, but you said put it in there. That's exactly where it landed.
Because it fits nicely.
Right. Fits nicely.
Boom.
Boom. Not giggity or anything, just boom.
Just boom.
So that's that one.
Yeah. Next one on my list is Vampire Weekend, Father of the Bride. This is their first album in 6 years.
Yeah.
It's okay. Again, it's not, I don't know. It feels very long to me. Like there's a lot of tracks on it. 18 tracks on here.
Yeesh. Father of the what?
Father of the Bride, like the Steve Martin movie. So there are 18 tracks on Father of the Bride. There are some good ones on there, and they do kind of like, I don't know if you've listened to some of their previous work.
A little bit, yeah.
A lot of times their albums are kind of all over the place, not necessarily genre wise, but sound wise. Like I can't remember the album that has a punk or a punk, whichever way you want to pronounce it on it.
What's the classification on them? Are they emo? What are they? Post hardcore punk?
I think I'm going to say alternative.
Fair enough.
I don't know what they would like officially be classified as. American indie rock is what Wikipedia has to say.
Interesting. American as opposed to British indie rock.
Apparently this is also their first album on a major label.
As opposed to
Thanks, Columbia Records.
Bali Rock. It's the Indian version.
But it's not a bad album. It has some very fun numbers on it. This Life is pretty good. And so was Sunflower featuring Steve Lacy. Pretty good song. It's a fun, short song, but I liked it. But it's an okay album.
Another one. All right. I didn't realize they had released a new record this year.
It just came out. I guess it came out in May 3rd, 2019.
Just came out
In 2019.
7 months ago.
I'm thinking of the next album on my list.
Oh boy.
Or 3 albums away on my list. But I'm thinking of the last album on my list.
Holy smoke.
It just came out.
Okay.
Yeah.
So it went from 2 to 5.
I'm all over the place tonight. I'm sorry.
It's all right.
Doing good.
Yeah, you're doing just fine.
Doing great. Let's start this over from the beginning.
Just doing great.
Doing great. There you go though. It's give it a listen. It's a good follow-up to their previous album. And there's a couple of songs in there that I actually like.
So number 2 for me is by The Who, and it's Who, which is the name of the new record. Who by The Who.
Who. And we are talking about
Who.
The Who, the British rock band, not the Who HU,
correct.
The Mongolian heavy metal throat warbling band.
That is correct.
Okay, I just want to clarify.
Is The Who.
We live in 2019. You have to clarify that.
Right. From one side of the spectrum to the other. From a relatively unknown band, which is my first one, to one of the most accomplished bands of all time.
Agreed.
And at first I was extremely apprehensive about this record after their last offering, Endless Wire, from 2006. Before that, their last studio record was 1982's It's Hard. Wow. And to me, the only listenable songs on that are Athena and Eminence Front. Eminence Front's a great song.
Oh, yeah.
So 2 records in 37 years. So I wasn't holding out hope that this would be any good. Surprise, surprise. It is an excellent record. Excellent. It's a bunch of well-crafted songs that remind us just what a great songwriter Pete Townsend actually was. And Roger Daltrey, while weathered and worn at 75 years old, still holds up really well. A couple of standout tracks, Beads on One String and Hero Ground Zero, are fantastic. It's actually based on a book, like a fiction novel that Pete Townsend released this year.
Oh, yeah.
So they coalesced a little bit together. One of the best line from one of the songs is, in the end, every leader becomes the clown. As soon as I read that, I'm like, well, he's obviously speaking present tense.
Yeah.
Which I love. Most surprising revelation I got from researching this record was learning just how much these 2 guys who have been in a band for 50 years absolutely hate one another. Hate each other. So interesting story. I think I talked to you about this before. They recorded this record on completely different continents. They were never in the same room at the same time when they made this record. Pete Townsend wrote it in LA. He would email the tracks to Roger Daltrey in England. who would sing them, and the producers would send the shit back and forth, and mesh it together. So the first time they actually performed it was when they were rehearsing to go out on tour.
Wow.
But they are really, really well-written songs, and it takes you back to, I've read stuff that it's the best record they've made since Quadrophenia, and it's really, really good, which is, it makes you happy. Like, they're 74, 75 years old. There's a good possibility that this is the swan song record.
Yeah.
And I'm glad that they're going out with a really good record instead of laying a dud and then walking out.
Yeah.
Not that they would have cared, because they don't care. Pete Townsend just doesn't give a shit. But I'm glad for fans, it's like, I'm glad they're going out like this.
I think it's good for their legacy, just generally too. Because I mean, it once again proves that they were not just like, oh, we're just a loud rock band, or, oh, we were just, we were popular because we could, make pop hits. They were loud and they could make pop hits.
Yep.
But they were also very talented. They are a very talented band. They're very smart and innovative, and they're still making stuff that people want to hear.
Pete Townsend, I know Chris is listening out there, and Chris was responsible for me listening to The Who in the first place. My brother, who was my primary musical influence, really didn't listen to The Who when I was young. So when I had met Chris, he's like, hey, did you listen to this? Did you listen to this? I'm like, just what I've heard on the radio. And he's like, oh, you got to, and he's like, listen to Scoop, and it's like all this Pete Townsend demos from years and years and years. He had released these records that were Tommy's demos and Quadrophenia's demos and all this stuff that he had written. And I'm like, holy crap, this guy is amazing. And in the innovation, in the song craft and all that. And him making that transition still to keep writing good songs and not just banging out whatever, but really taking his time. I mean, it's a good period on the Who sentence. So number 2 for me is Who by The Who.
I like it.
Sweet.
I've only listened to like a couple of tracks on it. I need to finish it up, but so far I like it.
Yeah, you should. It's good. That's it for number 2 for me.
For number 2. Third one on my list was this has been on my playlist, and I've listened to it probably, I don't know, I'd say once every week or so since we interviewed Chris Tapp from the Cold Stairs. But Ways by the Cold Stairs.
Hey, that's number 4 on my list.
Hey, there you go. Well, we just got a twofer.
Yeah, we did.
But it has really been, it's a fantastic album. I know I say fantastic a lot, but it is a fantastic album. When I first kind of heard it, I was like, yeah, this is not really my sound, but I've kind of fallen in love with it. It's a really great, really listenable album. It's pleasant. It's fun at sometimes, and it's serious and kind of sad at sometimes. And it's very good. And if you haven't listened to it by this point, because I think we've plugged it like 4 or 5 times on this podcast, go listen to it.
Right. I'm proud to call this band a friend of the podcast.
Right.
Now. This was an eye opener of a record that kind of restored my faith in the belief that there are still new bands out there making really good rock and roll.
Agreed.
And from the opening riff of Any Way the Wind Blows to the solemn acoustic finish of Jackson, Mississippi, this record grabs you by the throat, shakes you around, and reminds everyone what is good and right about rock and roll. And I love it. I'm so grateful to Joe Bonamassa for recommending that people listen to this, and for all the stars to align that allowed us to talk to them, see them live, and to meet them. They're really great gentlemen to boot.
Yeah.
And if this record's any indication, we're going to be hearing a lot of them.
I hope we do.
For years. I mean, it's such a great record to listen to, and I was pleased, very pleased to listen. So yeah, we got a twofer. The old twofer. Number 3 for me is by Jimmy Eat World. Their new record is called Surviving. It's the oft overlooked Arizona emo-ish rock band. It's a solid offering. It's the lead singer, Jim Adkins, had some addiction problems. So this is the first record post-addiction problems. So everyone knows Jimmy Eat World for their for that song, the middle, that one song.
Yeah.
Yeah. And they never really got the attention they deserved, writing these super catchy hooks and emo lyric stuff. But they keep churning out good records, and this is no exception. And there's not particularly anything daring or standoutish about it, but the songs are really good, well crafted. Nice guest appearance by AFI's Davey Havoc on there. It's a good album to crank up. So that's my number 3.
Didn't even blip on my radar, so I will definitely have to go listen to it.
Yeah, it's good. It's a good record. It showed up, I think, in October, and it was like, I like this band, and I'm like, it's good. It's good again.
There we go.
There it is.
Number 4 on my list is Mika. My name is Michael Holbrook. I don't know if you know anything about Mika. I want to. We're definitely have to do one of his albums on an upcoming episode. I'm just trying to decide which one.
Oh, it's a dude?
Yes. He's been compared favorably to like a modern day Freddie Mercury. His stories are really similar. He was born in, I forget exactly where he was born, outside of the UK, emigrated with his parents to the UK, grew up and started, just has loved music since he was a kid, started making his own music when his first couple albums came out in the late 2000s. I think the first one was Life in Cartoon Motion. Basically, his music producer told him he is, depending upon which press release you look at, either bisexual or fluidly sexual or gay, depending on which time frame you look at.
Mm-hmm.
But when he first started to become commercially successful, his music producer and his manager basically said, "You can't come out. You have to stay in the closet because this will end your career." And this was 2007, 2008.
That's ridiculous,
right? But his music was very. Jesus, there's a song called "One Foot Boy." Come on, man. We know you. We know what you were singing about. But anyways, this is his newest album. And a lot of his older music is very poppy and like modern sounding. This album kind of pulls it back. There's a lot of instrumental, not instrumental. There's a lot of orchestral in a couple of the tracks. There are some pop songs on here. Ice Cream is it's probably the song that, if anybody's actually heard anything from this album, that's probably the song that you heard because it's a very poppy song. But there's a song on here called Paloma, and San Remo is also a very good song. And Tiny Love is the song that I was telling you the other day that for whatever reason, like the first time I heard it, I think I was cooking a casserole or something, and I just like started crying. I was like, "It's so wonderful!"
Oh, this is the one you were talking about. Okay,
it's probably just because it's
probably because you were really emotional about that casserole.
I was really emotional about that chicken casserole.
Was it good?
It's very good. I really like this album.
No, I meant the casserole.
Oh, the casserole.
Yeah,
the casserole turned out okay.
Okay.
I didn't burn it.
That's good.
It turned out pretty tasty.
Screw the music. How was the damn casserole?
Ritz crackers, sour cream, chicken.
Ooh, that sounds delicious.
And then you bake it.
Yeah, I like that.
There's some other stuff in there too. Poppy seeds, some other stuff. It was tasty.
So is he an instrumentalist or is he just a singer? Or
he writes the lyrics and the music for all of these, and he's actually a fantastic musician. If on this album does not have any tracks where. How do I put this in words here? Some of his older albums, the extended versions of the albums, have acoustic versions of the tracks, or it's a piano and him singing, where he's like, "This is how I developed the song," and then it became this much poppier. We added in a lot of electronic instruments and things like that. This one doesn't have any of those, at least not yet. I'm sure an extended edition will come out someday. But because of those songs, you can really sit there and listen to and say, "Oh, I can see how he developed this song sitting at the piano, and then how it grew into this very pop song."
Okay. So he releases kind of like demos of.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And they're usually like
skeletal versions of the song.
Yeah.
Okay.
They're very good though.
Is he American or is he
British?
British? God damn, that's British.
Yeah.
British are good.
They're wonderful.
Really good.
But yeah, if you, like I said, it is probably a little poppy for a lot of our listeners' tastes. But it's worth a quick listen, and you can make up your own decisions.
Sounds good. I'll listen to it. Number 4 was Ways by Cold Stairs. Strangely enough,
right?
We should talk about. Oh no,
it's almost like we liked that album. I don't know.
It's a good record. It's so. Oh, what the hell is that?
My eyeglass on the mic. Sorry, everybody.
Jeez, it was. It's really good.
Indeed.
So go ahead, skip to 5.
All right. 5th one on mine is Cold War Kids, New Age Norms 1.
I've heard some of that record.
It is very mixed, in my opinion.
Yeah.
So the track that they released 2 tracks way back at the beginning of summer, like in June, Complainer and 4th of July. Complainer, I think, is the standout track on this album. It sounds a lot like their older stuff. I think it's a pretty good song. I've been listening to it since July, or since May, or June, excuse me. Good Lord. I've been listening to it since a month previous to now.
Yeah. November?
June.
Oh.
No. June. June is when those 2 tracks came out, because it was right before the 4th of July. And they released a track called 4th of July, which is also not a bad song.
I think I've heard that one.
Yeah.
Yeah.
The rest of the album is pretty good. There's what was the other song? Fine, Fine, Fine is a pretty fun song. And Tricky Devil is not a bad song either. All in all, I don't like it as much as some of their older albums, but it's a good release.
Well, that's kind of where we landed on a couple of these.
Yeah.
So far, is that it's good, but not
worth a listen.
Not great,
right?
But it
not gonna spend a whole episode of the podcast on it, but worth a listen.
In a vacuum of crappy music, it's okay.
in the vast vacuum of space filled with nothing but crappy music, here are 5 recommendations that are slightly less crappy.
Yes, that's how we need to tag this episode.
Ooh, there you go.
Write that down for Christian so he can update it. Just like, these aren't as crappy as some other things we could have talked about. Yay. So number 5 for me is Tool, Fear Inoculum.
I figured you were going to put this on there.
And you have a rabid fan base like Tool.
Literally in some cases.
And they delay for 13 years. And then they deliver this. You have to put it on your list. And I'm warning everybody who hasn't listened to it out there, if you do listen to it, be warned. This is not a record you can listen to one song at a time to really comprehend what's happening. If you do that, you're missing the point. It's like a metal symphony. And much like a classical piece of music, it has to be listened to all at once. You can't part and parcel it. The drummer, Danny Carey, who has a solo piece on here called Chocolate Chip Trip, which is exquisite. It's unreal. He originally wanted to make this album one long 88-minute song.
Wow.
But he was talked out of it by the rest of the band. But that's kind of how it's played. Is that even the interludes are necessary to the musical narrative that they're trying to construct. If you know Tool, if there are people out there that listen to Tool, if you know Tool, they're long songs, not their shorter, more poppy ones. They're longer pieces. Build, explode, and then decay. And this record takes that formula the next logical step to full album length. So it builds. If I was a religious person, this is very much like a religious experience where it's almost mantra-like, where it's just over and over and over and over again until it builds with this song called Tempest at the end that's like 16 minutes long, and it's a roar. And you're like, whoa. And then it finishes with another interlude at the end that's just very peaceful and kind of quaint, like you made it. And now it's the decay. And it's not even the best Tool album, in my opinion. It's not something that a lot of people can readily digest because it is a commitment. It isn't just, I like track 4. It's like, no, if you listen to track 4, you're taking things out of context and it doesn't really make sense.
Yeah.
And you have to play the whole thing.
You have to listen to it as a whole.
Yeah. But it's, to me, it's weird because when it premiered in August, I was blown away by it. and it was incredibly like, oh, we've been waiting 13 years. This is amazing. And then I kind of went through a lull in like October where I'm like, what? Listening to this, I don't know if it's even as good as I thought it was. And then I started listening to it again, and it's like a rubber band where it's like, well, it's not so good. Oh, wait a second. There are things that I missed first 50 times through that it's still kind of unpacking for me.
So what Matthew is saying is when you hear this, it'll probably be slightly after New Year's.
Yeah.
So it should be 2020 now.
Yeah.
Just start listening to that album on repeat, and sometime around March, you'll understand it.
Yeah, pretty much. And I think that's how they want it. I mean,
yeah,
they want you to pour over it. There's little nods to previous songs that they've had in their catalog that they reference in here, but not lyrically. And it's kind of like John Williams, like in a Star Wars movie when he has a motif from a previous Star Wars movie. Mm-hmm. He's not going to play it overtly because that would be too obvious, but he throws in like a 5-note musical reference to it. And if you're quick enough, and you'll pick it up and be like, was that? There's a scene in, it's the end of Revenge of the Sith. This is going to get totally nerdy. Revenge of the Sith when Luke is dropped off as a baby in Tatooine. Mm-hmm. And it's the baby dropping off. And there's a Harry Potter reference musically in that scene because John Williams did that, and it's the baby baby scene from Harry Potter. Same thing he references, and that's just, unless you're not, if you know that stuff about the music, you're like, oh, I recognize that. And that's kind of how Tool does it too, that there's references in their music to their earlier stuff without being, I can't think of another riff, I'll just put something old in. It's very specific, and it's very deliberate.
My personal opinion on Tool is they've never topped the song Intermission.
It's a good song.
It's you know what? I got a good story about that. I'm going to tell it. And Randy, if this doesn't fit, you can just cut it out later. I'm sorry. The first time I heard that song, I was in the backseat of my friend's car. We may or may not have been inebriated on various substances. And I can never pronounce this album. It's Anima, right? We were listening to it, and all of a sudden that track came on, and it's all upbeat and happy, and it sounds like a calliope organ playing. And I was like, what the heck is this? This is fantastic. And my friend was like, this is the worst track on this album. It's horrible. It interrupts everything. I don't like it. And it was my friend Sean. And I was like, that's great. It's a great album.
You know, that's an organ version of a song that's 2 songs later.
I did not know that, no.
So the guitar riff 2 songs later is what he's playing on the organ.
I did not know that.
Oh, yeah.
That's awesome.
Yeah, so they're kind of self-referential, making fun of themselves, which you appreciate because you're like, yeah, they know this is music. They're not like solving the world's problems. It's art.
So Sean, my friend who was like, I hate that song, I don't like it, a couple months later got me pretty good because he brought some music over on a CD to a party we were having. And he knows that a few years previous I had gone on a road trip with another friend of mine, and stuck in the cassette player in the car that we were in was the soundtrack to Top Gun.
Ooh.
And
Kenny Loggins.
Yeah. A few songs on there pretty good. But Mighty Wings is, I cannot stand listening to that song. And if it comes on, I have to leave. So if you ever need to get rid of me, that's how you do it. Just down, and I'm like, I'm out.
Oh man, that's easy.
Right?
Hold on, let me make a note of that for later. How to get rid of Kyle.
My friend Sean hands me the CD. He's like, oh, yeah, you should play this. It's really good. So I put it in, and I don't remember what the first song there was. I was like, oh, okay, yeah. Second song comes on. It's Mighty Wings. And I was like, you dick. And I'm like, all right, well, screw it. I'll skip. Third song starts. I'm like, okay, yeah, this isn't too bad. Halfway through, the song just blank cuts, and it's Mighty Wings again. I was like, God damn it.
You got rickrolled.
Skip to the next song. Same thing. 10, 15 seconds in. And I was like, you son of a bitch. And I took the CD out and threw it out in the backyard. So I got him back a few months later because I did the same thing, but with Intermission.
Oh.
I feel like I picked a much better song, though.
Well, You really don't like Mighty Wings, do you?
No, I don't. It's another one of those songs that I can't stand it. It was a long trip to California, listening to that over and over and over again, and then listening to it all the way home.
You think it's going to be in the new one?
Oh God, probably.
Yeah. They have to call that back. Come on,
Anyways,
Maverick.
Bit of a diversion there, but
that was good.
Every time I think about that, it just comes up.
Diversions are good.
Did you have any runners up?
I had a few honorable mentions. Yeah,
honorable mentions.
Honorable. Yeah, I had Half Moon Run. Their new album, Blemish in the Great Light, it's an excellent record. It's just it's a slog. Again, it's a concept record, so you need to devote some time to it, and it's good. I think it's just a little green, but I like it. Local Natives have a new record called Violet Street. That is very good. And the third one that I have, which I had talked to you about earlier, I think it's one we're going to delve deeper into later in the year. It's by Nick Cave and the Bad Seeds. It's called Ghost Teen. It really is one of the most, it's probably the saddest record I've ever listened to. So you got to be prepped for it.
Gird yourself beforehand.
Because it's just, there's a song on there called Waiting for You. Just to give people the premise of it, his teenage son passed away a couple of years ago. So this is a very cathartic kind of bearing his soul record. So there's a song on there called Waiting for You. And the whole record's about this event. But that one can rival Tears in Heaven by Eric Clapton any day of the week. It's a gut punch. And it's hard to listen to, but I think it's almost necessary to listen to. It's intense. There's a lot to it. I think that's a good record to explore somewhere down the road. It's pretty amazing, but it didn't make the list just because I didn't have enough time, I think, to explore it. So
you were afraid your tear ducts weren't going to be able to suck the tears back.
I probably couldn't.
Talking about it.
Yeah. Oh my God. And you?
Yeah, I got a few. This Land by Gary Clark Jr.
That's actually a great. It's a really good record.
Very good album,
yeah.
And it is very unexpected, and it's an interesting mash of sort of. I don't even know if you want to say it's a little country, it's a little rock, it's a little hip hop.
Well, I'm a little bit country,
and I'm a little bit rock and roll.
Oh.
No, we're not going to do that. Golden Gray by Baroness is a very good like hard rock album.
So you like that, huh?
I do.
I can't
get into it.
I can't get into it.
I can see why.
I tried. I just couldn't do it. Metal fans,
yeah, it's
probably enjoy it. I tried really hard because we have a
personal connection with the guitar player,
right? And I just couldn't get my arms around it, so to speak. It's a little too dense.
It is very it's not quite like, I don't want to call metal light, but it's a very it's like a step up from metal in complexity. A lot of this, I don't even want to say that. It's weird. It's a very weird album in where it sits, because you almost think of it as it's not heavy enough to be heavy metal. It's not light enough to be what I would consider hard rock. It's very layered and
I feel like it's
complicated.
I don't know if you're familiar with a band called the Mars Volta.
Yeah.
It's like math metal.
Yes.
It's very
technical,
intricate to the point where it's disjointing. It's disjointed. It's very where you would expect musically, because everyone in their brain kind of expects changes to come at certain times. Is it like that's what makes pop music, because the way it's written is very pleasing to the ear, because your brain's like, there will be a change here. There is a change here.
Yeah. And
this is not that way. And they come in unexpected times, and it's difficult to listen to.
Yeah.
Unless you kind of train your ear to be accepting of that.
I feel like it's kind of one of those things where in every field, they say, okay, here's all the sort of unspoken rules of, the unspoken rules of filmmaking, or the unspoken rules of writing, or the unspoken rules of, dance or whatever. And you learn all those rules and then you follow all those rules. And then eventually you get good enough where you can say, oh, I can break this rule here because X, Y, and Z. And they are doing that through this whole album.
Yes.
They're saying, we're going to do a tempo change here and it shouldn't happen, but we can do this because we know what we're doing. But it's so much of that compressed into one album.
Right.
It's kind of like, oh, okay, you have to think about this while you're listening to it.
Yeah.
And like you said, you have to adapt to listening to it.
Very much so.
I enjoyed it. I think that, give it a listen if you've got a chance out there and see what you think.
Yeah. I mean, definitely listen to it, but be prepared.
Yeah. I think it's going to be one of those albums where you either like it or hate it.
There was another record that appeared on like a ton of top 50 lists by a band called Black Midi. It's very similar, not as metally, but definitely math rock.
Rock.
It's what is that? Like it seems it's like a record is skipping. Like, oh, it sounds like the record's skipping. Like, why does it keep doing that? Well, that's the changes they're putting in, and it's like Discord and stuff, and you're like, no, they shouldn't have put that there. And so you have to kind of adapt to it.
Yeah.
And if you don't, it's going to be a very uncomfortable experience generally. So.
Yeah.
And do you have another one?
I do. I've got two more actually.
Okay.
Outer Peace by Toro y Moi. It is a very, this is a little bit more probably outside of the realm of most of what our listeners would normally listen to. It's very techno adjacent. I guess it's a good word for
techno adjacent.
Techno adjacent.
So next door.
Yes. I enjoyed it though. It's I don't remember when I first heard it a few months ago, but it's very interesting and I liked it. And I liked it enough that I was like, it was on my list of albums. There was like, maybe not. I don't know. Last one is, and the only reason this is even on here is because I completely forgot that this came out this year.
Is it Coldplay?
No.
Okay, good.
Hyperspace by Beck.
Oh yeah.
And what's funny to me is it just came out, but Saw Lightning, which is the pushed hit off of it, has been playing on the radio since like February or March.
Yeah.
I mean, it's just, I've heard it so many times that it's like, oh yeah. Okay, there it is again. Oh yeah, there it is again.
It's not my favorite Beck record.
It's definitely not my favorite Beck record.
No.
But it's not a bad record.
It's not bad. It's not bad. And he's one of those artists that he can kind of reinvent himself.
Yes.
Every 10 years or so and make good records still.
Yeah.
To me, that wasn't one of his best efforts.
Agreed.
Sea Change is a fantastic record.
Oh, yeah, it is.
But yeah, anyway. Okay, so Beck.
There you go.
I got that written down back here. So those are our lists.
That's it.
I want to hear your lists.
Please.
Chris, I know you're listening, and I know you have 150 somehow that you could probably tell me about and go, why didn't you listen to this, jackass? Like, well, I'm sorry.
The rest of you too.
Yeah, everybody else.
Even if you can't come up with 5 albums, come up with one.
Yeah.
Tell us what your favorite album of 2019 was. We want to hear it. I know that you'll be listening to this in early 2020.
Yeah.
But that's okay. A retrospective.
Tell us Billie Eilish's record is the best record of 2019. And you know what? For a lot of people, it is. I don't think it's that bad. I think it's pretty good. It's not the style that I enjoy necessarily, but I know it's a good record. So tell me. So write in and say, I love that record.
Please.
Tell me that Lana Del Rey's Norman fucking Rockwell is the best record of 2019, and maybe it is.
Yeah.
I didn't know that it was actually called that until the other day. But
a lot of people have been referring it to NFR.
Which is National Finals Rodeo.
Yeah, gotcha. That was why I kept, because I kept hearing it as Lana Del Rey's NFR. And I'm like, NFR?
She made a country
record?
What the hell?
And then all of a sudden I saw it and I was like, oh, Norman fucking Rockwell. All right. That's not for sale at Walmart.
No.
But please do email us, info@audiojudo.com. You can get in touch with us on social media, facebook.com/audiojudo, at audiojudo on both Twitter and Instagram.
And
please.
First episode of 2020, we'll be talking about Childish Gambino's Awaken My Love. So that's going to be exciting one, since we're going to venture into some hip-hop R&B type fields.
An area that neither of us know anything about.
It's going to be fabulous. I have a little bit of experience in it.
I can sing all of Rapper's Delight.
God, I hope that happens. It's going to be awesome. So yeah, if you have any recommendations for next year. We have several months kind of mapped out, but let us know what you'd like us to talk about, and we'll put it on the list. And we're looking forward to a full, exciting 2020, and we hope you'll be listening to us. So have a good and safe holiday. Actually, you'll probably be listening to us after the holiday's over, so I hope you had a safe holiday.
We hope you didn't die over the holidays.
Yeah, that would be bad. I can't lose tens of listeners. But we hope you come back and keep listening to us, and have a great couple of weeks, everybody.
Yeah. Have a good 2020, everybody.
Bye-bye.
Look a baby. Look a baby. Wait, what did you say, Randy? Look up here. Oh, look up here.
Look up here. Hey, you too. Quiet. Not so loud.
Not so loud.